Hello, this is Brett Etheridge, founder of Dominate the GMAT, here with your GMAT tip of the week. The tip for this week has to do with formulas on the GMAT, math formulas. And specifically the tip is this: avoid, to the extent possible, memorizing formulas. The more formulas, I have students who feel like they need to make scratch paper notes and write down all the formulas they need to know for the GMAT. And then I've even had students ask me, should I go in and as soon as I sit down in my cubicle, immediately write down as many formulas as I can remember on my scratch paper? The answer is no, because you shouldn't be memorizing that many formulas to begin with. There aren't that many formulas on the GMAT to begin with that you even have to know, and most of those you should be able to create a logical understanding around them rather than worrying about filling your brain with those formulas, which you may forget, you may get confused, and it's filling your brain with stuff that's not necessary and detracting you from spending your brain power on the stuff that is necessary, like applying those formulas to answering the questions. A perfect example is the distance, rate, time formula. You know at some point you're going to probably see a word problem that's going to involve distance and rate and time, and you probably remember from your textbooks or from my course that there's a formula that governs that. But what if you forget it? What if you forget the order? Is rate equals distance times time, or divided by time, or distance is rate? And you forget. But here's the logic behind that, right? Think about a rate that you do know that we deal with every day. What's a common rate that we deal with all the time? Well, when we're driving our car, right? We know that it's miles per hour. You're driving at 60 miles an hour. That's a rate. The point is, a rate is miles per hour. Does that make sense? Distance, miles per hour, time. You're driving at 60 miles an hour, that's your rate. Without even having to memorize it, I just immediately know how to write up that formula. Now that may not be how you memorize the formula, but what do you notice here? Let's say you want to solve for D. You want it in terms of distance. Well, simply cross multiply, right? So that distance equals rate times time. That's that formula I was supposed to have memorized, right? Isn't this how we usually see that formula, distance equals rate times time? But don't worry about memorizing it. Don't let it get jumbled up in your mind. Think about the logic behind it so that you can recreate it on test day rather than worrying about whether you have it right or wrong. It's also kind of a fail-safe. So as you're going through triangles, or as you're going through solid geometry or the quadratic equation, which you definitely don't need to memorize the quadratic equation, but as you're going through those, think about, okay, how can I put myself in a situation to get right answers without having to have, a brain full of, 20 odd formulas, because you simply don't need it on the GMAT. Use a little logic, use a little common sense, and it'll go a long way for you as you go out and dominate the GMAT.